Welcome to your first video for geometry class. Today we are going to be talking about points, lines, and planes, and it's a lot of vocab, so you are going to want to make sure to pause the video and write down the information. I will not be giving you time during the video to write down information, so you want to make sure to pause the video. First thing we are going to be starting with would be a point, which a point is a location and has no size. So this would be considered a point, this little dot, or a very, very large dot can be considered a point. Just because that dot is larger does not mean that the point is taking up more size. It just means that someone drew their points larger. And typically we are going to be representing points with capital letters, so like A through Z. A line is going to be a straight path that is in between 2 points, and it goes on forever and has no thickness. So just like a point, this could be a line with a thicker line. Those are still the same thing even though I drew the second one thicker. And we label lines in two different ways. It can be with 2 points, so this could be A, B, or it's going to be a lowercase letter that is in cursive. So this could be like line L. Another key terms would be a plane. So it's going to be a flat surface. So it's typically like your desk or a wall, anything that's flat. And typically when you see this in geometry, it's going to look kind of like this. And there's 2 ways that we can represent a plane. One would be 3 non-collinear points. So what non-collinear means are 3 points that are not on the same line. So I could say this is plane A, B, C, or the other way that you could represent a plane would be a cursive capital letter. So I could say this could be plane R because it's cursive and it's capital letter. So points that are on the same line are collinear, and points that are not on the same line are non-collinear. And points and lines that are on the same plane are coplanar. So when you see this first part, bringing a little language arts here, that co means kind of like the same. Collinear, linear is a line, planar is a plane. So again, make sure that you are pausing the video and you are. We are now going to get into some basic geometry questions when we're dealing with these vocabulary words. The first one would be, well, there are 2 other ways that you can name line AB. I know it's a line because of the symbol right above, so it has 2 arrows when representing. When you're representing a line, you put the 2 letters that represent that line close together. If you're drawing a line, it looks like this down below. This A and B are far apart. So this is my line AB. So there's 2 ways that I can represent this. If you look here, here's my cursive smaller case, so that would be line L. If I look here, when you're representing a line, you just need 2 points. So if I look, here's B, and here's a point F. So I could also say that this could be line BF or FB. Now, if I just put those 2 points, that's not correct. You have to make sure you draw what you're talking about above the 2 letters. Now, I could also, even though I say 2, I could also call this line AF because those are another 2 points on that line. So what are 2 other ways to name plane Q? So if I look down here, this is my cursive plane Q. Again, when you're representing a plane, you just need 3 non-collinear points. So an example here, I could not, to represent this plane right here, I could not say these 3 letters because they're all on the same line. But I could say plane, and you should write out the word plane, and then say C-E-A. It doesn't matter if 2 points are on the same line, just as long as not all 3. But I need 2 other ways to represent this plane Q. So I could also say plane. Again, you should write out the word plane. And I'm going to use C again, and I can say E-D. So those are two different ways to represent plane Q. So my third question says, name 3 collinear points. Again, this collinear saying 3 points that are on the same line. And I actually already boxed them in. Here's 3 points on the same line. So I could say E, A, and D are all on the same line. I could also say, if you look here, this dotted line, that represents that that line is going through the plane up and down. So these 3 points are also all on the same line. So I could also say F, yellow doesn't show up that well, A, and B. So if I'm looking at name 4 coplanar points, again, when you're saying coplanar points, you don't want them all on the same line, but 4 points that are on the same plane could be C, E, A, and D, because all of these are on the same plane. They're all on this, let's say if this was like a sheet of paper, plane. 2 more key terms. A segment is another line, but it doesn't go on forever. So if I have a segment, I have a point and a line and a point. So this is how I would draw a segment AB. But if I'm going to be talking about and labeling, I would have A and B close together with just a line above, no arrows, or a line segment above. Line would be with arrows, line segment is with no arrows. Array is a part of a line that just has one endpoint. And so when you're thinking of array, I usually talk about a sun ray. So it has one endpoint, and then the other point goes on forever. So just like the sun, it starts at the sun and then it goes on forever. So this would be ray A, oops, that's an A, B, or else you could say, or this is how you would represent it, A, B, and you have to make sure, this is where it's very careful. Here's my endpoint, and then it goes on forever through B. So I have to make sure that when I'm labeling A, B, that there's no arrow by A, but there is an arrow by B, because this would be my ray. Again, as you read this down here, the order of points and the arrow indicates the ray's direction. So this is very important when you are writing or drawing a ray. Opposite rays. A lot of times when you see a line, there are opposite rays within that line. So an example, if I draw a ray, and I typically just pick the beginning of the alphabet just because it's easy, A, B. And then I'm not going to draw another ray. I'll change the color, but it's going to have the same endpoint. So opposite rays share an endpoint. It's going to be A, C. So when I actually write these out, I have ray AB, and my endpoint is at A, so I have to make sure the arrow is by B. And I have ray AC. You always want to write the endpoint first. So the arrow goes by C, so you have to make sure to match it up. This would be considered an opposite ray. But looking at this picture now that I have drawn, you could also see that this actually has a line within the opposite rays. So I also could say that I have a line CB, and they have 2 arrows, just like that. So opposite rays are 2 rays that share the same endpoint. Right now, I want you to try to answer these 3 questions. So push pause and then push play to see if you get them correct. So there are 3 different line segments within this picture. So I have MN, I have MP, and then I have NP. I wrote 2 different ways because it doesn't matter the order, that's still the same line. So NM is the same thing as MN and vice versa. Now when I'm looking at what are the rays in this picture, I can say that I have, here's my endpoint right here in the middle. I have ray NP, and you want to make sure to have that arrow by the P, and you also have ray NM. So again, you want to make sure to have no arrow by the N because that's the endpoint. And those are going to be the same as the opposite rays in the figure. The next vocab would be a postulate or axiom. So this is a statement that is fact that we know is true. And we have one or more geometric figures. Their intersection is the set of points. So this is very confusing. I would not write this down, but I just want you to read it. So again, make sure you're pushing pause and writing down the information. Here is a list of different postulates that we are going to be going over in class. So again, I want you just to make sure to have this down in your notebook, or if you printed out the note guide, to write this down, because we're going to be referencing back to this information. So make sure you push pause. Now we have 3 different questions again. So each surface of the box at the right represents a part of a plane. So again, if I have a cube, any flat surface would be a plane. What is the intersection of plane ADC? So if I trace this out, ADC is this plane. And then I have plane BFG. So if I look at BFG, this plane right here. If I look, this is the only spot that I traced out twice. So the intersection, or where they overlap, would be BC. And there's no arrows, so I do not represent the arrows. And it says which planes intersect at BF. So if I trace BF, this is which planes overlap. So this is one plane right here, and this would be my second plane right here. So I could say planes, and I'm going to put an S at the end, so I just have to write that out once. I'm going to say BFE and BCG. Those are the 2 planes that intersect at line BF. So this was the first video for geometry. Make sure that you got all of your vocab written down, that you fill out the Google form and submit it. So you want to make sure to fill out that and submit it. That is how you will be graded. Have a great day.